Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Yellowhorserevolution podcast. And I am very happy, very excited, and a little bit nervous, and really honored to have my very first guest on my new podcast. And no one less than from the Netherlands, dressage, bridleless rider, Daantje Bos. Daantje, thank you for being here. I'm so excited. Maybe you can tell. And I can't wait to, get our interview out and let everybody know in the world about you. So, shall we get into the questions?
Yeah, let's start.
Let's start. Okay. You're the woman that just wants to go and do it. That's great. Okay. Well, and now that you're here, Daantje, maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about yourself. Who is Daantje Bos?
I'm 22 years old now. I just had my birthday, so I still have to think. And I'm a horse trainer and instructor. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, so I still have to think about my new age.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm a horse trainer and instructor, and I give a lot of shows around the country, mostly with my own horses, sometimes with other people's horses. And I mostly focus on riding bridleless and liberty. Liberty also from the ground, of course. But I also start young horses under the saddle, help horses that have developed problems in the human world. And I also just give lessons to anyone who has a horse and wants to learn from me. It can be anything, as long as you're open to learn, I can give you lessons. So that's what I do mostly in my normal life.
That's fantastic. And I think that this also helps changing the horse world because you are really sharing your knowledge into how to do that. So I have questions prepared for me, audience. So if I look down, I'm looking at my questions because I don't want to forget anything. So let's start at the beginning. How did you start riding bridleless and then even dressage? Because it's not an evident thing to do.
Well, I started riding bridleless when I was about 7 years old. And I started because my mom was riding bridleless. She had a PRE gelding in that time, and she rode him only bitless and bridleless and always with a bareback pet because he couldn't handle a saddle. So I had my mom I saw my mom doing that, and I was like, I want to do that too. I want to ride without a bridle. So just with my little Welsh pony with Atje, I started riding bridleless just for fun, nothing spectacular. And I grew in it, and I started jumping and doing a little bit of dressage, but nothing high level, just for fun. And the years passed by, and I started to ride our Anglo-Arabian Matar, and he was a really difficult horse. And as a stallion, he never was able to be trained bitless because he broke all bridles and he also broke all halters. And now looking back, I know why. But back then, we thought it's a horse who can never be trained bitless, let alone bridleless. And eventually I saw videos of people jumping really high bridleless or riding Grand Prix bridleless. And I was like, I want to do that too. I don't care how difficult my horse is, I'm going to do it. So I just started riding him with a neck rope and bitless. And at first, sometimes, so I also rode him in a bit, but sometimes with a neck rope, sometimes bitless. And it went very well, but as soon as I wanted to ride him more bitless and less with a bit, I started to have struggles with him. But now I know it was all just communication. And I really had to strengthen that bond with him. And he knew he had to do things. When he was wearing a bit, he was like, okay, I have to, I don't have a choice anymore. And when he didn't have the bit, he knew now I have a choice because she can't hurt me. So I'm good. So it really took a lot of time and practice to understand how to communicate well with him, that he wanted to work for me also without that bit. So at one day I just chose like, I want him to be able to work with me without a bit. So I'm not going to use the bit anymore until I'm able to do it without. And when I was able to do it without, I never used it again. Wow. It wasn't necessary. So I was like, why should I use it now when I don't need it anymore? So he was for me the biggest example of that every horse can be bitless or even bridleless. He's also the horse I'm 2 times Dutch champion necro dressage with. So that
Wow.
was really special to do that with him, because he was that difficult and dangerous when he came, and eventually I could do anything with him, and it was like my big brother.
Oh, that's so
That's how my journey started.
wow, that's an amazing story. So to recap a bit here, when you were still training him somewhat traditionally and with a bit, he was really difficult and he didn't
Yeah.
like his work and he didn't felt like he had a choice. And then when you thought like, you know what, this is a very difficult horse, let's just go riding without bridle because that's what I want. And then you started to notice that that everything went actually much better.
Yeah, at first it was really, really difficult, and he was starting to say no to every question I asked. So that was a really hard period for me, because I wasn't able to do anything with him. But we competed in dressage, and I couldn't even go run around without him saying no. So that was really difficult, that change. But I was really like, I want to do this, and this is the horse I have, so I have to do it with him. I don't have another horse. So I'm going to do it no matter what, how long it takes, I don't care. We're going to get there. When I'm able to do it with this horse, I'm going to be able to do it with any other horse. So he was for me a lot of motivation to really try and keep trying, just as long as it would work. So yeah, I just stayed rideless and bitless until it worked. And
Wow.
eventually he was way more happier.
Wow, that's an amazing story and actually quite familiar to how my path started with that horse that objected to everything and always was angry and dangerous. And I also remember that in the beginning when he found out that he could say no, he would say no to everything. And I also understand
Yeah.
that people are afraid to let horses make a choice and say no because they are afraid that horses don't want to do anything for you anymore. But if you just continue, like you just explained, and you show yourself to them that you really don't want to hurt them in any way, and they can really say no, but that they can also say yes, and that they have a choice in what that yes would be, and you take the time to do it. My experience also is that then the most beautiful magical things just happen, and you take that experience with you to each horse that you work with. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very familiar. I love that story. That's really great. Like this one is very difficult. Let's take the bridle off and make it more difficult for myself, or make it more easy on my horse, and just see where we go here. And yeah, of course, I should say don't try this at home, but at the same time, I wish everybody would try this safely, of course. But yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, really great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my second question was that what do you notice about developing horses in dressage as opposed to with bridle or even double bridle when you do it bridleless? Do you notice the difference the most?
Well, a lot of horses feel much more free when they don't have a bridle. Some horses, the difference is much bigger than other horses, of course. Each horse is different. I have to be honest, I've never ridden in a double bridle, so I don't exactly know those differences because I've just never used it.
You've never ridden
But
in a double bridle?
no, I've never.
Never. Oh, well,
No.
well, that's great. If you haven't now, don't start.
Oh no,
No,
I will never
no
start with
added
a double
value for
bridle.
you at all.
No, I'm always joking that I'm riding in a double bridle when I have my bitless bridle on my neck rope. So
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's quite
it's
the
like the
same.
same.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then bitless. Yeah. But I notice a lot of horses are feeling more free, and they will also start to move more freely when they feel more free. And even when you are only riding on the neck rope and letting your reins all go, don't use them, they still feel much more freedom when you take off the bridle. So I think that's beautiful because You want your horse to feel free to be themselves, feel free to have a choice. And from there, you want to train them. Not because they feel they have to do something for you, because training should be for the horse and not with the horse, if you ask me. So that's, I think, the biggest change you see when riding with a bridle or without bridle. And for me, my biggest challenge with all horses, because I, of course, also train in a bridle with all the other horses I train. So I want them to feel just as free as they would feel without a bridle. That's for me a big challenge to get there. But I think that's great if you can achieve that the horse feels really free, even though they have a bridle, they have reins, but they still know they can say no, and they are allowed to have a choice. So I think as a rider, we should always have that as a goal. So my horse should know he can communicate with me, even if that's a yes or a no or I don't know is also a possibility, of course. And it shouldn't matter if you have a bridle or bridleless, in my opinion.
That's
The horse
right.
should always be happy.
Yeah, I fully agree to that. And I think you made a very important point that I always have a saying, if you work with reins, work as if you don't have reins. And if you work without reins, work as if you had reins. So that you have
Yeah,
the feeling of reins, but you're not actually having them. And then when you do have reins, don't use them to enforce, but just for the energy that you give through them. So
yeah,
and that
yeah. And in my opinion, you can guide a horse more easily with reins because
yeah
it's more directly.
yeah
But it should be guiding them and not forcing them or saying you have to do this, or it's really guiding them.
yeah like being a dance partner and holding their hands instead of
Yeah,
dancing together without really holding each other. So yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree. And I have a similar experience of the, I think, past 25 years now. And yeah, it's so great to hear that you have the same. Yes. And I think to recap that to people that listening, that Dantje said, so to start this out, whether you're going to ride with a bridle or not, is that first the horse has his own natural balance and that he feels completely safe, self-aware, and feels like he has a voice and a choice in everything that is going to be done in the training. So that would be a great starter point for everybody. And bitless, bridleless, loose reins, positive reinforcement. Those are the sort of training types that can accomplish that quite easily. So yeah, I love that. Okay, let's move on to the next question. I would really like to know, and I think also the audience would like to know, what your view is on spurs.
To be honest, I have ridden in spurs in the past because I rode dressage competitions and they were required, so I didn't have a choice. I always use those very little spurs that are just flat, nothing sharp or anything. Just I had it on because I had to be
Yeah.
able to compete. But I never really liked them. Both my Welsh pony and both my Anglo-Arabian didn't like them either. So I always had to try when I had them on to not use them because I didn't like to be touched with it. So that's my experience with spurs. And now I never use them. In my opinion, when you can really communicate with a horse, you shouldn't need anything special to be able to ask them any questions. So I want to be able, with just my own leg, my own energy, my own body, to ask them any kind of movement because we can truly communicate. I don't need something extra small to be able to touch them with, because that's what people say, of course. It's just you can be more specific. And that's true, of course. You can be more specific with a spur. But I want my horse to understand me because of my energy and because of the way my whole body moves, and not just one part of my body, not just my lower leg. So I think when you ride your horse correctly in that direction, you shouldn't need spurs.
That is very clear and well understood. And I say I quite agree. Yeah, really great to hear. Because I think that indeed the body weight movements, those are very overlooked. Everybody's always talking about using the legs and using the seat, but it's your whole body that influences the balance of the horse. So spurs shouldn't be really necessary. And if they do use that these pressure points, why make it metal? Why not make it some soft material like rubber or something? I mean, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, there are some new spurs that are rubber and they are like round around your boot and not just one little point. So they are already a bit bigger and softer. So maybe that's already a change into the good direction. But
yeah,
I think not using anything that you have to put on extra is a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have to, then something that cannot hurt or be misused. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's excellent. Good. And I will look into those spurs. Interesting. Then we have our next question. Can you give the audience a tip or tips on starting their bridleless dressage journey?
At first, I always start when I already am riding a horse. I'm riding them in a bridle, and I always start bitless. So, but if you're riding with a bitless is always the first step to take. So first try bitless, and from there you can put on the neck rope and ride with the neck rope and your bridle. In case your horse doesn't understand the neck rope, you can always use the reins to guide them. So then you can let go of them again and use your neck rope. And like that, you can just use your neck rope as much as possible and your reins as less as possible until you're like, my reins are now just in my way. They're annoying. And then you're taking your bridle off. And then that step is really small. It should be small. And from there, it's just have a lot of fun with your horse, of course. That always is most important. And then you are going to search with your horse for the right balance, and that's for each horse different, and for each rider and horse different, because every rider brings their own balance to the horse, of course. So you have to search together for a right balance, so your horse can become more soft in his body and his muscles, and go to carry his rider more correctly. And that takes time. It takes a lot of time. But most important is always just look at your horse, communicate with them, and make sure to have a lot of fun, both of you together.
Yes. Yeah, I quite agree. I do the same thing. Also, I add in the dressage in hand exercises with the cordillo. So I walk next to my horse and then ask him to move the shoulder from the cordillo and so forth. And this helps me then when I get into the saddle. But I usually also do the same thing with the bridle and then with the cordillo and then face the bridle out in the same way. Yeah, that is great to hear. I love that.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next question. I've printed them out here. Now we are at a very exciting moment. That was the bridleless competition in Poland last year. And you and your horse, you won second place. Can you take us through that experience? And will there be more competitions like that in Europe? I saw there was another one, but you weren't present this year. Will there be more competitions like this, and will you participate? And yeah, we'd like to hear about your experience there.
No, I really hope there will be more competitions, of course. I was there last year in our World Championships, but most riders are from that area, so countries next to Poland, and I was the first one ever from the Netherlands, and it was such an amazing experience. It was a competition like no other. All riders are friendly and kind to each other, and everyone is happy for each other when they have a good ride. So that's really amazing to be at a competition where riders can be happy for each other. Usually, everyone is only happy for themselves, and they are like happy when someone else has a bad ride. And I don't really like that kind of thinking. I think it's nice for everyone to have a good experience there, and whoever wins, it's always whenever you are happy for each other, it's always nice when someone wins. It doesn't really matter who it is. And that was really the case at that competition. Everyone was happy with each other and with their horses, and all the horses were happy and relaxed. So I really enjoyed the experience. And it was my first competition ever with that horse, with Leota. So I was like, we're just going, we're going to participate, and we'll see how it goes. And I didn't really think about having a place or anything. It was just gaining experience for the both of us with an international competition. But he really outdid himself. He was amazing. And of course, we had our mistakes in the test, and that's fine because you can always make mistakes. So I was really happy with how he did, how he behaved, and it was amazing to also in the warm up. Just all the horses there were also bridleless. No bridle was allowed. It was allowed to use a soft halter in the warm up if you needed it, but almost no one rode in a halter. Almost everyone was just bridleless. And all the horses have like a natural respect for each other. So no one is in each other's way when warming up. But in a normal competition, you're always struggling with the other riders and you almost bump into each other. But it's really the riders doing that. It's not the horses. And it was really beautiful to see that even when you are with like 8 or 9 bridleless horses in one arena, you still don't bump into each other or anything. Everyone can just ride freely and just warm up their own way and being respected by all the other riders. So that was really a nice experience. And also placing second, everyone was just happy for me and I could be happy for everyone else. And with the person who won, I was also very happy for her. She really deserved it. She had a very good ride every day. So it was it was just so amazing. And I really hope to go again next year. I hope to go this year, but I didn't make it, unfortunately. So hopefully we are able to go next year again. And we'll see. I'm not going to win. I'm just going to have a good time with my horse.
Well, I think that is the best way to go about it. And I feel really warm inside when I hear that story. And that sounds really fun and amazing and a good experience to have for both horse and rider. And also what you're saying about the warm up, that the horses didn't bump into each other. I mean, also the horses can watch out for themselves because
Yes.
they're walking on their own 4 feet and they're not being, guided with their heads down or whatnot. And also in contrast, when you think about that rider, that very famous rider, I think it was a British rider on her stallion, and that they had 2 people on both sides with reins to the bit who had to hold the stallion on that Olympic level, while this sort of more amateur level in Poland, then people are just, all loose in their arena together without bridle. I'm sure people would say, well, there weren't any stallions. I don't know, but still.
I think this year there was a stallion. I wasn't there, but I heard that there was a stallion this year.
Yeah.
Well, and he was also ridden bridleless, of course, because bridles aren't allowed.
Yes. Yeah. I think if you have a good relationship with your horse, and I know there are some older trainers out there who really hate that word relationship. They feel like you cannot have a relationship with the horse the way that we girls think that we have. But with relationship, we just mean that your horse and you, that you understand each other and that you can agree upon the things that you are doing, which makes you very safe even if you ride bridleless. So thank you for taking us to Poland with you. And if you can go again next year, maybe if you have a GoFundMe page or anything needed, just let me know and I will make sure to help you out with that, because I really want to see you back there, you and Leo T. That would be amazing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Next question. Now we're there at the subject that is really hot at the moment, equestrian sports. So the viewers would like to know what your view is on the current affairs within mainstream equestrian sports at the moment.
Well, I'm not surprised with what's happening. I think no one should be surprised with what's happening in the equestrian world and what kind of things are happening at the most top level of our beloved sport. I think if you know well enough, you should know that that's the only way to come there. And I'm not saying it's correct, absolutely not. But I know that currently with how they want to see the horse move. You can't get there without forcing them, without making, without letting them get so much tension. They just don't know what to do with their legs anymore, and they will just throw them anywhere. And that's where we want the horse to be. How higher the legs are, the better. So that's more my concern. It's about how it's judged at the moment. And I think if the whole judgment is going to be more into the horse welfare, so we want to see happy horses, relaxed horses into the ring and not anything spectacular, I think then the whole training system will also change with that. Because when you need a relaxed and happy horse in the ring to be able to win, you can't force that. You can hit your horse, but you can never hit him until he's relaxed. He will only get more tense. So I think we should more focus on changing the judgment in this case dressage, and not just the training. The training is bad. I can't say anything else about it. I don't agree with that, of course. But you get this kind of training because people want to achieve high scores and being a top level rider. And you can only be that if you force your horse into that level. And I really hope in the future that we can appreciate horses that are relaxed and happy and just have loose ears and loose tails and just move freely and not being as tense as they are now. Of course, a horse is tense at a competition. That's normal, that's natural, because they're out of their home and they are somewhere they don't know. So of course that brings tension, but you can still see the difference when a horse is tense about being somewhere, or the horse is really tense because it's always tense in training, and so also in the competition because he just knows he has to perform now and doesn't have any choice. Also during the World Championships, of course my horse was tense during the test, because it's just stressful for a horse. It always is. You try to make it as least stressful as possible, but traveling is stressful. But I still tried my hardest to make him feel as comfortable as possible in the ring. And also, if he didn't dare to do anything or wasn't able to do something, then we wouldn't do it. And he knows that. Also during shows already, if he says no, the answer is no. So it doesn't matter how important something is, a competition or a show. If my horse can't perform at that moment, we can't perform. And I think we should really appreciate that with all equestrians. And currently, we just want horses to perform at that moment. We need them to perform. They don't have a choice. They just have to. So that's something that really should change.
Yes, yes. So you think the most important factor within equestrian sports at the moment, and dressage and specifically, is that the judges should adjust to judging at the calmness and the natural flow of the horse, as opposed to spectacular movement. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, when the judgment will change, everyone has to change their training methods.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And I also think that, and I don't want to make excuses for the riders
No, definitely not.
Yeah, if they also could adjust the test so that it would be easier for the horses to ride. And I also think that the riders, I don't want to make any excuses for them for their forceful training and a lot of the violence that we see. But I also think that maybe because of all the sponsors and the pressure and the owners of the horses and the whole world looking at them, that they have so much pressure to make it happen by any means possible, that they maybe feel like they don't have a choice as much as the horse doesn't have to. So I think these are also things that we should look into, if we can relieve the riders of those pressure, so that they are able to say, okay, well, my horse says no, okay, it's no. No harm done. Maybe they feel like they can't. I don't know. I'm not a competition rider. I have no idea about that really, and I also I'm not interested in that. But I feel like that there are more factors at play here without making excuses. Of course, horses should never be pressured and tortured and hit and whatnot. But yeah, I think we need to find a way to relieve pressures of the riders and trainers as well, so that they feel
Yeah,
they can say, "Oh, my horse
yeah,
doesn't want to." Some riders, especially in show jumping, I've seen that quite often with the Whittaker brothers, for instance. They take a horse to a jumping just for the experience, and then when the horse is like, "Nah, not today. He made a few mistakes," and then just they leave because they don't want the horse
yeah.
to have a bad experience. But they are so established and they are their own horses and they don't have big sponsors or anything, so they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and I think it's important that also sponsors are going to appreciate riders like that. So as a rider, you are always responsible for your horse because you're riding them. You are the one that can really say in words what your horse is saying to you. So as a rider, you are always responsible for forcing your horse to do something. But I think that sponsors and everything putting the pressure on the riders should be like, okay, you're saying your horse doesn't want to. That's really good. Thank you. So I think we should appreciate those riders much more.
yeah, I quite agree. And then, as you say, a different training of judges to point that out, that would
Yeah.
make a huge difference. Yes, interesting. I think this will be interesting information for people to think about. So, Daantje, we also would like to know what your thoughts are concerning to keep horses species appropriately or more traditional, and what differences you notice in training horses as opposed to traditionally or species appropriately.
Well, what I see the most is that horses in stable are more easily frustrated than horses that are being kept outside. Of course, that's also because outside they can move whenever they want, whenever they need. So that's much better for both their body and mind. And horses that are more inside a stable, they get more easily like behaviors we don't want or physical problems. The more they are in the stable, the bigger the chance of the so the chances of such problems will be. Um, so I always want my horses to be outside as much as possible. If it's not possible to give them outside 24/7, then as many hours as possible during the day and as less hours as possible inside the stable.
Yes. So, and you notice difference training wise, not just that if they are more difficult, but also when you're building your training physically, do you notice a difference between horses that are stable than horses that are kept with freedom, friends, and forage?
Yeah, horses that are like more happy, of course, learn much easier. And when they move more freely also in the field and outside, it's also easier for them to build up muscles, of course, than when they are standing still hours and hours in a stable or only turning. They will always turn into the most easy direction. So they will train themselves like one-sided. And in the fields, they have more space, so they will easily train both-sided. And especially with friends, they are like a little bit forced to also train the other side because the other horses won't think of it that one side is best for some horses. So they are more easily to be trained better when they are outside and with friends than when they are inside or alone.
Yeah. It always I'm flabbergasted about the fact that so many equestrian top sport trainers and riders keep their horses stabled for their safety because these are
Yeah,
expensive horses. And I think, what athlete would you keep in bed all day, then take him out for an hour training and then expect the best of results? Do you think top sport riders would benefit from learning about species appropriate husbandry for horses, and what would they notice, do you think, if they would start keeping horses for instance on a track system or on a safe cross area together?
no, I think they will notice that. Well, mostly top horses don't want to train, of course. So probably their horses won't come to them. As in the stable, they will always come to you because they just want to go out of the stable. And when they are live outside and they are happy outside, they will only come to you while training when they really like to be with you. So I think that's already a big of a change for most riders, that your horse will only come to you when the training is like even more fun than their living area. So that's difficult, of course, to make your training that fun, especially at the top level. So that's really important. But when you get there, I think you will get the best out of your horse. You will be able to perform so much better than when your horse is just stabled and only outside when you train. Because your horse will be much more motivated to work with you, will much more try and do their best way more than that you're used to, because that's the only time they get outside of their stable.
Yes. Yeah, I quite agree. And I wish they would catch on soon for their own benefit as well as obviously horses. Yeah. So you trained stallions, and you also have stallions in training now. What is your uptake on stallions? Can they be kept species appropriate, or is that not the case?
Yeah, one of my miniatures is a stallion. He's just 3 years old, and he lives with my other two horses, and it goes perfectly fine, and he's very happy. And the other stallion is from Spain. I have been training now for a couple of months, and he's like the sweetest horse ever. I really love him. But he gets really easily frustrated with other horses and turns then aggressive. So, of course, that's dangerous for other horses. So, first we kept a little distance so you could see them and smell them, but not touch them or hurt them. And then as time goes by, we are trying to get the horses more close, and now there's just a wire between him and another gelding, and they can groom, they can touch each other, they can play with each other, but still as safe as possible with a wire between them. And hopefully in the future he will be able to be together with other horses. And if not, I think it's always important to keep gelding in mind. The horse should always be able to play and have friends. And when that's not possible as a stallion, you should think of their welfare before anything else. So then maybe gelding will be the best option. And that's, of course, depending on the horse. And hopefully, people will see more that stallions are also just horses.
Yes.
Stallions are not only stallions, they are still horses. So
Yeah.
you have to treat them as a horse and not just as a stallion.
I agree. I agree so much. I mean, they are the same prey animal. And if people deprive them of social contact, they become antisocial. And if people lock them up, they become frustrated. That is how they come to be dangerous. Not from living as a horse. Then that doesn't happen, in my experience also. So do you think horses can have depression?
Yeah, I really think so. Yeah. Yeah, you can have horses that are really like turned inside themselves and really don't care about anything. And they're just also, when you train them, it's like training with a ball. It doesn't matter whatever you do, you can hit them, you can be sweet to them, they will just do whatever you want them to do, and they just don't care anymore. So yeah, I really think horses can have depression, and it's really beautiful for me as a trainer to see a horse that is so closed up and then seeing him opening up. It's like a flower that's like really close, and then you see the flower slowly opening up and the beautiful inside. And I think that's really beautiful to get the horse there, that he really enjoys living again.
Yeah, literally blossom. That's a very nice analogy. Yeah, I love that. I quite agree. Yes, it's so beautiful when you give them the choice to be who they are, and they slowly start showing themselves to you and what they prefer, what they want, and what they need. And yeah, that's one of the most beautiful things out there, I think. And what about hoof care? How do you take care of the hoofs, and do your horses ever need shoes?
Currently, my 3 horses are barefoot. The 2 miniatures I have, I train them myself. Their hoofs are also too small for like the normal iron horse's shoes, so it's not even an option for them. But I do have little hoof boots in case there is something wrong with their hoofs, or I walk them too much on hard surface, then they can always wear those. And my Lusitano Leotte is also barefoot. And as long as they don't have a medical reason to wear iron shoes, I won't shut them, because I think it's always better to have them barefoot. And whenever their hooves need something a little extra because of riding outside too much or anything, then hoof boots are always a very good option.
That is great to hear, and great that you do your own trimming. I do that as well, and then you get to know your horse even better. And I feel like still in the training when the hoof needs something and then you correct it yourself. I feel more people should look into trimming themselves. They don't have to become farriers or trimmers, but just understanding your own horse's hoofs and trimming them maybe in between farrier trims or whatever. I think that would contribute a lot to keeping your horses healthy if you have that knowledge yourself, and it really isn't rocket science actually at all.
Yeah, and I think it's also important, and when you have a trimmer or a farrier or anything for your horse, to be there when he is here. So when your horse needs a new trim or anything, that you are there and you can talk to your farrier about things about your horse, and then he can trim your horse as best as possible. Then he only sees it like once in 6 to 8 weeks. So he doesn't really know your horse, and when you're there, he can only make it better. So I always think it's important to be there when your horse gets a fresh trim. So that's a good start for the most of people, to maybe trim themselves or keep the hoofs as good as possible in between the trims.
Yeah, like doing your own hair care in between the
Yeah,
hairdresser.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. So Liotte, he has PSSM MIM, just like my Don Conquistador. And I would like to know, is the lifestyle he's having and his nutrition and hoof care, is that all contributing to him being able with this chronic disease to still perform so beautifully?
yeah. I really think that's helping him a lot. Yeah, before he was just stabled and of course outside a couple hours a day, but always alone. Um, at first, she did have him in a little herd, but quite soon she noticed that he wasn't able to be with any other horses, so she kept him alone in the paddock or in a little field, and the rest of the hours in the stable. And of course, the physical problems already appeared after a year, so that's quite soon. And now he lives outside a lot. He still has very fragile tendons. We don't really know why that's, but we are trying to figure it out and help him to make it stronger. He's also hypermobile, so that isn't really helpful. But I think it really helps him to be outside and moving as much as possible, because he needs to be as strong as he can be, in order to be as less fragile as he can be. um, the he needs to be really strong, otherwise his hypermobility will only get in his way. And when he's strong enough, he can really manage it. And when he's in a stable, he isn't building any muscle, and now he's walking and moving 24/7. So that's really helping him with building muscles. So I really think that's helping him a lot, like the way we keep him right now.
Yeah, I have the same experience, and Don Conquistador also has the hyperflexor, hypermobile tendons and weak muscles and overflexible
Yeah,
tendons and joints. That is the worst possible combination. And Don Conquistador
yeah,
is 17 now, and they told me a lot of horses don't make it past 17 when they have PSSM. But he's doing beautifully. The only thing he has really trouble lifting his rib cage up. So his thorax always drops. And that's why
yeah,
I almost don't ride him. It's already difficult for him to hold that up. And then when I'm sitting on top of that, then I'm only doing that sometimes to test saddles. But now that he's on the track, the difference in how he's coping physically and mentally with the chronic disease is and it's an immense difference. And of course there's also the nutrition and the hoof care, but and the training obviously, but the
yeah,
track system has done enough. So I think that if horses with that kind of disease, obviously every horse should have this, but especially with this kind of disease, if people were able to find a place where they could just always have free movement with friends, forage and no starch, no carbs, no sugar, yeah, that makes an enormous difference. You almost don't notice it unless you know it. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you can keep them in the stable and train them as good as you can, but still training is for like If it's a lot, it's like an hour a day. So then the rest of the 23 hours a day, the muscles aren't doing anything. So you want the muscles to work and to move, and the muscles and the whole body, of course, like all the time, like 24/7. And sometimes it's the little muscles because he's eating, and sometimes it's like bigger because he's running or playing. But I think it's important to think about all the other hours in the day when we are not there and we are not training. Because when it's a lot, it's an hour a day. And usually you don't train your horse 7 days a week. Well, at least I think that's too much. So all the other hours you're not training, he should be training himself.
Yes, exactly that. And I think that is an important message for our listeners to also pay forward to everybody they talk to, that the other 23 hours, these are much more important than what you are doing in that hour of training. Obviously, you mustn't force your horse, and you have to know what you're doing, and you have to give your horse choice. But no matter how good a trainer you are, if your horse is in a small paddock or in a stable, the other 23 hours, he will never develop the way a normal, healthy horse would, and especially a horse with an illness in the muscles. It's just devastating. And if we can let our PSSM hyperflexible horses shine, then imagine what it would do to these top horses or a healthy horse to have that lifestyle, how they would improve and be much more able to show supple and loose and free movement. What people are looking for, this self-carriage, this collection, comes from the core muscles, and they can only build that if they walk the whole day, as horses are designed to do that. So the other 24 hours, what you're saying, I think that is really, really important. And that should be the takeaway from this wonderful episode 2. And I think we're went through all the subject here. I was wondering if there was something you would like to tell your audience or ask them or whatever, anything that comes to mind. I'll give the word back to you.
Well, I always say that it's just most important to enjoy every time you have with your horse, and make sure your horse has the best life you are able to give him. And as long as you're always trying to improve and trying to make things better in training and their welfare and in their housing, then you're always doing a good job. Even though it's not perfect, it's never perfect. So just try to do your best, and that's all you can do.
Yeah. Don't look for perfection, look for improvement. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
I think that is the perfect message to end this with. I'm so thankful that you were able to come on my episode, because I know that you are extremely busy with everything that you are doing. And I will be following up on you. I'm a big fan of your work. And I can't wait to publish this episode. I know that everybody will love it. And so I'm going to leave you now, thanking you once more. Have a great evening. And I will see you online or via WhatsApp or whatever, and we'll talk some more. But thank you so much. I'm sure this is a perfect episode. And
thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm very happy. Okay. Bye, audience. Bye, Daantje. And maybe we do this some other time and some other place.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, and give Leote my best, because I'm a big fan of his. Please tell him.
I'll tell him. I'll let him know.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.